children and our grandchildren. I don't think we have a very thoughtful approach to dealing with our long-term issues. We have a political system that puts a huge premium on the quick fix, the instant result, the what can we do now to fix things tomorrow before the next election. And you better believe that as soon as the jury is in on November 2nd, there'll be a lot of posturing looking out for the next election. We don't have a decision-making process, a policy-making process, either for the fiscal authorities or I would say especially for the monetary authorities. My pet peeve in America over the last 12 years is we've had the worst monetary policy in the United States from both Greenspan and Bernanke since the 1930s. And this Dodd-Frank bill does nothing to address the reckless monetary policy binge that we've been on. So we've really got to rethink our national priorities, and it's less a function of ideology and more a function of the myopia of our short-term decision-making process.
Thank you.
The Chinese do 5-year plans, we do 5-minute plans. Yes.
Thank you for your presentation. My question is about more regarding Southeast Asia. There's clearly China's a big focus in Asia, but your views on opportunities and threats in Southeast Asia, namely Vietnam, Malaysia, and their prospects going forward.
The thing I'd say about Southeast Asia, or about the Asian theater in general, is it's now amazingly China-centric. It's a region that has provided, or that's gone through a major change in the mix of its production platform. Again, go back to 97, 98, most of the countries in the region, from Japan to the ASEAN economies, export-led, major export market, the United States. Fast forward now, a major export market is China. So the region has a lot at stake in this China-centric supply chain, which is still very much dependent on demand in the West. I think that if China does the pro-consumption agenda that I'm alluding to, that there's enormous opportunity, especially for China's East Asian trading partners, such as Korea, Taiwan, obviously, even Japan, to benefit immeasurably from China. The big question for some of the smaller ASEAN economies is how do they survive where capital is migrating so heavily to China and other East Asian trading powerhouses. This is a very important question. I didn't talk about India. I'm very optimistic on India, but for very different reasons. India has a model that has been largely focused on micro foundations for the last 20 years, companies, young workforce, market institutions, rule of law, democracy, but they have not addressed their macro issues as well as China, and that's hobbled them. In the last 4 to 5 years, India's macro has improved a lot. Savings, infrastructure, which is still terrible, is now a big focus point, and foreign direct investments picked up. So I'm much more optimistic on India than I've been in recent years. Will they catch China? No way. All right, the tie.
There we go. I just had a question. You obviously talk about the opportunities from the growth in service sector, growth in consumption in China. To me, that sounds like one of the most tremendous kind of opportunities for entrepreneurship, at least over my lifetime. Are these opportunities, do you think the Chinese government will be open to kind of foreign entrepreneurs taking advantage of, or are these Chinese opportunities for Chinese only?
Look, I think the government has made it very clear 30 years ago with this sort of slogan of opening up and reform that they want to draw heavily on foreign capital and foreign expertise, initially in building the manufacturing platform, but now in doing the consumption services-based platform as well. There are a lot of people who complain about doing business in China, more so today than I've seen in a while. And the idea is they'll take our capital, but they'll steal our technology. They squeeze our returns. It's very hard to repatriate profitability. Those are the costs of doing business in China. Those are the costs, I might add, of doing business around the world. We need to negotiate hard as business people and as political leaders to ensure that our access to China and our willingness to provide capital to China is on terms that are favorable to us and not just them. And those are the issues that we need to negotiate. I do believe, in answer to your question, though, that this is an opportunity not just for the indigenous Chinese entrepreneurs, but also for all of us. We at Morgan Stanley have had a joint venture with a major bank in China for 15 years. We built the first investment bank in China, CICC. China's benefited from it. We've benefited from it. We're now selling our shares. We're going to go on to another platform because we think there's a lot more to gain from that. And I look back on those 15 years, yeah, they've been tough, but they've been absolutely what we needed to do and what China needed to push its financial services model to the next place. And I think it's the same type of experience as we now move into a much broader opportunity in the Chinese consumer. Yes.
Thank you, sir. My concern is not that what you've suggested isn't a good solution, but I fear that it's going to be very hard to change things, that it's going to take many, many years to have the Chinese consumer pick up, and instead they're just going to keep investing in infrastructure. What's your base case scenario for where this all goes if, in fact, these changes don't occur?
Fair point. This is the model that I showed you earlier, and this is why they don't have time. They got an external demand shock that scared them to death. And post-crisis world, if anything I've said is close to being right, they're not going to get lift to the red line that they had become accustomed to over the preceding 30 years. So they got a couple of choices. If the red line has lost support from external demand, they can keep taking that black line, the investment line, up and up. It's 47% of GDP. Exactly. Where does it go? Another external demand shock goes to 55, 60, 70, 80. There's no way they can do that. Because again, it creates these imbalances that the Premier himself has warned of. They've got to move to the chart on the right. They've got to do it now. That's the wake-up call from this crisis. If they don't do it, they're in big trouble. They really are.
So I see the time, and we have just probably one or...
You're the boss.
One or maybe two, although you're doing great.
Who's talking next? We can take time away from him.
We can do two quick...
No, you do whatever. You do
two
whatever.
very quick answers.
Okay, I'll give you one. I don't know if it's a quick answer. I'm very interested in...
Yes, what's the next question?
Okay. I'm very interested in what you've said about savings and consumption. I was recently at a speech that was given by the governor of the Reserve Bank of India, and he made the observation, India has a very high savings rate, et cetera. He made the observation that one of the problems in the United States is we have a social fallback position that doesn't exist in India, and it's the need to save for the future that becomes the foundation of the growth that countries like India and China have experienced. Your comments?
Well, I know the Governor Subarov very well, and the lack of a safety net in the developing world does lead to high savings. I wouldn't say that our fallback is in the best shape right now. Dick.
Steve, in China, they spend a lot more time. They're getting more serious about the development of their sovereign wealth fund. I assume you left China because they didn't ask you to run it. But could you give us some insights about how that will develop and how it will impact money flows and how it cooperates with the strategic interests of China?
Sovereign Wealth Fund, CIC, was set up about 3 years ago, and biggest startup in the history of the investment management business. The government gave them $200 billion. They were thinking of giving some of that to you, but they preferred to give it to their own asset managers. They've given them another $100 billion, so they're up to 300. Their first investments didn't go too well. They bought outstanding names like Morgan Stanley, but they've improved their performance a lot. The idea here is that they have a lot of excess foreign exchange reserves. They have $2.5 trillion in reserves. They probably don't need any more than $1 trillion. And so let's put the money to work in generating alpha, excess return, and use it to fund our social problems. It's a good concept. The debate inside of China, though, is who should these funds really go to? Why not, if you're trying to generate return to the people, why not just give the excess reserves to, say, the National Social Security Fund, which is hugely underfunded? This is a big issue, and I know the people run this CIC extremely well. They take their task seriously. I think they will do a good job, but the Chinese, this is a critical decision for China, how to generate more returns for their social welfare program. Let's just take
30 seconds.
okay, really quick.
Okay. So Nicholas Nassim Taleb has been really critical of economists, because of the induction problem, looking at historic returns, ignoring tail risk. As former chief economist, what would be your kind of response to that? Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree with Nassim. I mean, he's a friend of mine. There aren't too many economists who really did a terrific job in anticipating what was about to happen. The ones that tried were shouted down, as they always are in bull markets. But look, he's a trader slash macro thinker, economist, and I can't say that they did a terrific job either. We need to all sort of pull together and learn the lessons from this crisis. I find it a little troubling that we passed Dodd-Frank last July before the Congress itself heard from its own Financial Crisis and Inquiry Commission as to what caused the crisis. So this is an example of how ass backwards we've got the political process in the United States.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it. Let's go, please. Well, thank you very much, Steve, and for your future career as a professor, I do have one advice. There's some good news that it's going to get better. The bad news, it's probably the 5th time around. So good luck, and we all feel for you, but we appreciate your insights that you brought to today's conference.